Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome to my little corner of the internet. Today I wanted to try something different. So for a while now, I've been watching YouTube videos on Reddit readings, specifically r slash am I the asshole, and I think it's really fun playing judge and jury, telling people whether or not you think their feelings are valid for whatever it is that they do. And I wanted to dip my hands in it, put my little 2 cents in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the Reddit post and see which ones I gravitate towards. I'm also gonna go based on titles alone. I want it to be a pure reaction of whatever the hell type of craziness they have to say. Okay, without further ado, let's see what we can find. Ooh, this one looks good. Am I the asshole for wanting separate sleeping arrangements when a friend stays over? It's a little spicy. Let's see what this is about. Okay, so I, 22 female, and my best friend, 21 female, have been best friends since kindergarten, nearly 2 decades. For the entirety of our friendship, we've had sleepovers, and when we have sleepovers, we've always slept in the same bed. That's simply a staple of our sleepovers. It's not a sleepover if we don't. We're both night owls, and even once we're done with our activities for the night, and we lay down for sleep, we'll talk in the dark until we pass out. Now, here's a speed bump I've never thought of. My boyfriend just moved in with me fairly recently, and my best friend and I have arranged a sleepover. I casually say to my boyfriend, "Hey, best friend, is coming over. So would it be alright if we took the bed and you sleep in the living room?" When I tell you, this man was absolutely aghast. Aghast. He said, or best friend can sleep in the living room and we sleep in our bed. The fact that he wasn't cool with wanting to sleep in the living room didn't really shock me, so I say, okay, then best friend and I will sleep in the living room and you can just have the bed. He doesn't like that either. He is dead set on the idea that we sleep together and guests sleep separately. But she's my best friend. This has been the routine for years, and I don't really view it as that big of a deal. Even when I had a fight with my mother when I was 19 and asked if I could stay at her place, she let her boyfriend take their bed and slept on the tiny ass couch in the living room with me. I would just feel bizarre for being like, okay, good night, and leave her in the living room. I can't describe it, it's just weird. Thoughts? Am I the asshole? So already off the bat, I feel kind of conflicted about this because I may be weird for this. I mean, r slash am I the weirdo? No, I may be, but it feels kind of bizarre to call it a sleepover at the age of 21 and 22. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do whatever you can call it whatever you want. It still applies, like you're sleeping over at someone's house. But when I think of sleepover, I think of 14-year-old girls or boys who, usually it's a school night, but now they can sleep over because it's a Saturday. But at the age of 21 or 22, after you've already graduated high school and stuff, it's just staying the night. I don't know, maybe I'm being nitpicky. I mean, I'll probably still call it a sleepover regardless. So I guess it's just something I thought of. But as far as whether or not she's the asshole, I would have to say no. You're not the asshole. Maybe a little dramatic. I mean, you unironically used the word aghast. So, of all the ways to say shocked, that's probably the most dramatic way I could think of doing it. But definitely not the asshole. If anything, her boyfriend is a lot more of an asshole and more than a little stubborn. To demand that your partner subscribe to your ideas of how sleepovers should be run, even though they've been doing it for nearly 2 decades this way, or a certain way, it just feels like a little controlling. Now, there is a certain way you can remedy this situation. One is that you end up going to the friend's house instead of just letting her stay over your house. The boyfriend has no say of what the sleeping arrangements are at her house anyway. Or you can just tell your boyfriend to kick rocks. But I think you're pretty good. And that's just what I have to say. Let's see what the comments are saying. I'm actually totally perplexed at people who can see the BF side. Lol. Like, what? Maybe if she wasn't willing to compromise on sleeping in the living room, but what the F, people? It's one night. It's totally unhealthy for the BF to react this way over not getting to sleep with his GF for, again, one night. That's a major red flag. I'm 35 and still have sleepovers with my friends occasionally, and it's definitely not weird for us to sleep in the same space. And some of my friends are married. Why can't the BF spend, and let's say this again, one night not sleeping next to his GF? Oh my god, I can't agree with them more. It's just one night. The fact that he's not willing to compromise on either choice just screams off red flags that he's like extremely controlling. Now, I don't want to tell her what she should be doing with her life or her boyfriend. That's none of my business. But, you know, it's something to watch over. I mean, if he's really not going to allow you to enjoy your sleepover the way you've been doing it for the last 2 decades, what else is he gonna like lay the law down on you with? Speaking of her relationship being none of my business, I feel like some Reddit commenters need to be told that because it can get weirdly parasocial out of nowhere. I mean, just listen to this one. It just shows how many people are completely wrapped up in their romantic relationship to the point nothing else matters. I feel like that's kind of unfair to say. She didn't say that she wasn't gonna do it or that, you know, her relationship is more important to her than the sleepover with her best friend. In fact, we don't even know how this ended. There was no update. So to say that in her eyes, her relationship with her boyfriend is so all consuming that she like abided by his rules when we really don't know how the situation ended just feels kind of reaching. My one issue was the fact that it seemed like she never even talked to the BF about it beforehand and just said it was happening. If you share a living space, you should at least talk to your partner before making the plans. I don't think she's an asshole, but I think she could have communicated better. I think that's completely fair. Communication is definitely key whenever you're sharing a living space with anybody. But even though this comment is true, it's still missing the point of it all, which is the fact that this man, her BF, is simply refusing to accommodate for any of the scenarios in which she and her friend are sleeping together for the night. I don't disagree with that. It does sound like she told him, not like she asked and discussed to make sure he was okay with it, but that's not why people can see the BF side. People are clearly saying that they can see why he's upset. She doesn't want to sleep in the same bed as him that night, which is weird. Yeah, I agree with that. Leave the best friend out of the equation. Say she just wanted alone time on the couch. Would he have a problem then? It is borderline red flag territory, but I guess this is just a small snippet of their life. Exactly. We have a very finite amount of information on how this situation was remedied. Maybe he did end up accommodating to the sleepover conditions, and she just feels guilty about it. Maybe she backed down. We don't know. But with that being said, we're gonna leave it there and move on to the next one. This next one is titled, Am I the asshole for naming my baby the same name as my sister-in-law, even after she told me not to? No. Okay, moving on to the next one. Now let's see what they have to say. I've always wanted to call my baby Hope, after my great-grandma who passed away when I was younger. She was the sweetest woman, and I have always said I'd name my first daughter after her in her memory. Well, as it turns out, my boyfriend has a younger sister called Hope. She's 26 and doesn't really have the best relationship with her brother. They speak on occasion, but just each get on with their own lives, so we hardly have contact with her, besides at family gatherings. I told my boyfriend I planned on using the name for our daughter way before we even found out I was pregnant. He agreed and it was fine. However, when we found out we were expecting a baby girl, he said we should at least tell his sister that's the name we've chosen. I agreed and we arranged to go out for lunch together. There, I told her how I've always wanted to use her name, and the baby wouldn't be named after her as such, but they would share a name as it is important to me. His sister was not happy about it, and said she didn't like the idea of her niece sharing the same name as her, and asked us please not to use it. I explained to her I wasn't really asking permission, I was more informing her about our choice. Ooh, get her ass. She wasn't very happy about it, but this was months ago, and my boyfriend and I assumed she would be over it by now. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, when my daughter was born, BF posted in his family group chat a photo of her and her name, Hope. His sister called me and first said congratulations, but she didn't understand why we used that name when she specifically asked us not to. I said that it's going on her birth certificate if she likes it or not, as she couldn't even give me a reason not to use her name, whereas I could give her reasons why I wanted to. She called my boyfriend and I assholes and said that I will only impact her relationship with her brother even more. But honestly, I don't see what's wrong with using the name. Am I the asshole? Can I just say, I love the entitlement over a name as unoriginal as Hope. I mean, come on, babes. What are we doing here? The verdict is in, and I can confirm that she is not the asshole for naming her daughter Hope. The sister-in-law is being totally unreasonable here. Outside of the obvious that I just said before, how the word hope isn't even original. We're not talking about something out there like freaking chrysanthemum or something. We're talking about a name as common as Hope. Also, the biggest oversight here is that the daughter isn't even being named after Hope. It's named after her grandmother. I mean, I think it was very fair of her to consider whether or not Hope was okay with it, even if she completely disregarded her her wishes. But it's not like the daughter is being named after her. It's just they're gonna be sharing a name. I don't really see the problem with that. If the sister-in-law really has a problem with their names being the same, she can always, the simplest solution I can think of is to give her a nickname, like call her Thing 2 or Dupe. Hell, even Copycat would be a good one. I mean, the daughter will probably feel some type of way when she gets older and she understands why you're calling her those names, but let's be honest, someone's gonna be salty either way. I don't know if you said, but you should have told her why you wanted to use it. And it just so happens to also be her name. But yeah, saying you're using her name is a bit strange as it's not her name, but it's more of your grandma's in this situation, but not the asshole. Don't you just love when your opinions are seconded and therefore validated by random people on the internet? I think the way they approached this with the sister-in-law was just wrong. First, the sister-in-law should not have been sat down to discuss the naming of the OP's kid. Second, if they were going to discuss the name, it never should have been with the thought of it being sister-in-law's name, but great-grandma's name. OP caused crazy confusion and hard feelings here by making any of this about the sister-in-law. If OP wanted to name their daughter after the relative, that should have been all that was necessary. But by approaching sister-in-law and basically saying, we're going to use your name whether you like it or not, basically made it seem as if this was something they were going to do to sister-in-law rather than naming the baby after OP's great-grandma. Honestly, all this could have been easily avoided, but the way it shook out seems purposefully antagonistic towards sister-in-law, even if that wasn't the intention. Okay, so two things. First thing, I'm pretty sure the person writing this did say something about the grandma. If you look back, it said, I told her about how I've always wanted to use her name, and the baby wouldn't be named after her as such, but they should share a name as it's important to me. It kinda sounds like she already brought up the grandma, or at the very least mentioned that it wasn't going to be named after her per se, but after someone else, and that they'd just be sharing a name. Also, it should be noted that discussing the baby's name was the father's idea. Second, I don't think this should be considered purposefully antagonistic. Maybe indifferent towards her opinion, but it would only be antagonistic in my eyes if she went in knowing that the sister-in-law would have a problem with her daughter being named after the sister-in-law. Overall, I think the sister-in-law is kind of being ridiculous with this. Most people consider that an honor to have their niece or nephew be named after them. But I guess in her eyes, it's like there can be only one. There can be only one! Okay, let's do one more. Am I the asshole for calling my sister mean spirit?
That shit is not funny. That ain't funny.
I mean, you can read it. It's there. I have a 5-year-old son with ASD who I homeschooled, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's autism. My sister is very against homeschooling and has spent the past year fighting with me about my son, which I honestly find exhausting. I recently announced that I am pregnant to my family. Everyone was happy, especially my sister. Yesterday she asked me when I was going to enroll my son in school, and I said I wasn't. My sister got very upset and said I can't homeschool my son once I have a baby. I said I can. We got into another argument, which I finally ended it by saying I don't care about her opinion and don't really want to hear anymore. She said my baby will probably also be terrible word. Oh, yikes. Yikes. And I was and I was irresponsible for having another child. I yelled at her. I called her a mean-spirited bitch. I don't know what it is about that word, but about like that phrase, but it's, it's so stupid. Who thrives off of saying upsetting things. I told her she's a terrible aunt and a horrible sister. She said I'm a terrible sister and a horrible mother. My mother is upset. My mother's upset my sister and I fought and wants me to apologize for calling her a bitch. I do love my sister and would like to resolve the argument, but I can't find it in me to apologize. Was I an asshole for calling her a bitch? Or did she deserve it? I'm gonna have to say no, you're not the asshole here. First and foremost, I don't think the sister has any right to comment on her parenting choices here. As long as she's qualified and is capable of teaching her son what he needs to at that age, then I think it's okay. She may not like it, but the child's well-being isn't in danger, and more to the point, it's not her child. Also, I find it kind of interesting how much she claims to care for that child while simultaneously calling him what I can only deduce to be the R word. To a boy with autism who happens to be her nephew, I can't. After that, you have to call her a bitch. You have to. There's no other choice.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for that bitch. I don't.
It seems like a lot of the comments on here are agreeing with me as well. Not the asshole. And as a mommy of a 5-year-old son who is autistic and has ADHD, I am so sorry she said that gross comment to you. Don't let anybody try to make you feel less as a mother. I know some brilliant people that were homeschooled. She truly sounds jealous and nasty. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there are plenty of successful people in this world who are actually homeschooled. Among the ones that I know off the top of my head, there's Taylor Swift, Emma Watson, Justin Bieber. Probably the most famous example is Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas. So whether or not you were homeschooled or went to a standard school, it doesn't really matter in the end. At least not as much as people think. Not the asshole. She completely deserved it. As long as your son is thriving in homeschooling, it's none of anyone's business whether you choose to homeschool. And on top of that, to essentially call both of your children a horrific slur, I'd completely cut her off. Forget about apologizing completely. Does your mom know she said such a horrific thing about her grandchildren? There's a line you don't cross, and jumped over with a smile on her face. That's unforgivable in my book. Not the asshole. You might want to keep your distance from your sister for a while and just focus on a healthy pregnancy. She doesn't sound supportive anyway. I have 3 boys with ASD and I can guess what she said as I've pretty much heard it all. It hurts. Sometimes family doesn't know best. I hope you have a community in your life, homeschooling or neighbors that'll support you. I found mine and it's been amazing. Chosen family can be more supportive. Hopefully your sister will come around. In the meantime, just let her keep her negativity to herself. Take care and congratulations. Tell your mother you'll apologize for calling her a bitch the minute she publicly tells the entire family the things she said about your son, your future child, and you. Frankly, your family sounds like... Okay, we don't have to get parasocial here. There was also a lot of interesting takes on homeschooling, but for now I'm gonna leave it there. You can see the original post in the link below. My final thoughts on this, I understand the mother wanting to placate and have the sisters make amends, but something like this is a little too complicated to just be like, hey, my bad, you know? I mean, eventually they should make up. To be clear, I don't think she should apologize for calling her a bitch. That was very much justified in my eyes. But maybe meet each other halfway and apologize for the other stuff that they said. Well, that's all I have for this video. I like this one, it was very fun. I would like to do this again in the future, and I would love to hear your thoughts on all of these cases in the comments down below. Do you think they were the asshole? Did you think they weren't? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you and I never stop daydreaming.